And welcome to another episode of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto Lozano Lopez. He passed away in 2011, but he's honored, he's venerated, and because of him, we stand on his shoulders. And my good friend, Carlos Lopez, you guessed it, the Ted Turner of South Texas Broadcasting. With me today, I have the honor of bringing on our Congressman, Blake Farenthold. Welcome, Congressman. How are you?
Good to be back.
Hey, well, it's been a while, since November 2010.
Yep.
Congratulations again, I should say, and you're gearing up. But let me tell you, I had wanted to tell you congrats on a lot of your views. They came true, especially on immigration, a realistic policy. Some other things that you had talked about. I remember you referring to the tiendas and everything else. But for those who didn't catch that episode, tell everybody a little bit about your family, your education, your training and background. Right.
Well, you know, I'm a fourth-generation Corpus Christian, came from a family background that really had a pretty strong bipartisan nature. My step-grandmother was Sissy Farenthold, and my step-grandfather was Hayden Head, who was real active in Republican politics. It's no wonder the first marriage didn't work with the way they married out the second time politically. So, you know, long history in Corpus Christi, farming and ranching family, practiced law for a while, had a computer consulting company, did web design and computer consulting, been on the radio for a while, and now I'm in Washington, D.C. doing my best to represent the good people of Texas.
The last time we met was at your office, and I want to say, first of all, you've got a great staff out there.
Thank you.
And you make the time to see us. I appreciate that, and that is no bull. We were out there for the health care bill, Affordable Care Act. I was standing out there freezing a little bit in front of the Supreme Court, then went down to the Rayburn building, and you saw me, and we talked about hospice and home health, and I wanted to talk about that here locally in the second half. But tell us a little bit about, I know people are anxious to hear your perspective about the national issues that are affecting us here locally. As Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. Amen. So tell us a little bit. How's it going?
Well, you know, the big issues that are bouncing around Washington right now are immigration, which I think we can talk a little bit about in detail, and gun control. You know, Texas is a pretty strong Second Amendment state. You know, I grew up in a farm and ranching family. My grandfather taught me gun safety and marksmanship when I was in elementary school. Started off shooting jackrabbits with a .22 to shooting my first deer when I think I was third or fourth grade when I did that. And you know, I grew up realizing that guns are safe and a tool when in the right hands. But we've certainly seen some tragedies in this country with school shootings in particular. But it's a mental health issue that we're not dealing with. You know, that troubled young man in Sandy Hook, his family knew he needed help, and there was no way in our system to force him to get help. I've had problems in my own family with a family member who needed to get some counseling, and you know, there's no way to get them to do it if they don't want to do it. We really need to look at that. So I think there'll be some talk about guns, but I don't think we're going to see any significant gun legislation coming out, because I don't think there's enough support for it in either party. Even though, you know, all of us in Congress are concerned about what's happening, it's not so much the guns as it's a mental health issue, and I'd like to see us take that up. You know, we spent a lot of time completely changing the healthcare system, but we haven't done a whole lot with the mental health system, and we've got a lot of people, many of whom are from all walks of life, who need help in counseling. We need to make sure that that's available and the families have the resources to get that.
Well, and I couldn't agree more. You know, a lot of the gun issues, that's what I've heard from constituents on here that are Democrat and Republican, is that people say, well, what's going to happen to us when we don't have our guns for safety?
And you know, when you're out in the country, which you have a lot of down here, the response time of law enforcement is probably longer than you need if you've got an armed intruder in your house. And of course, in some of our more urban areas throughout the country, the crime rates are high. So rural or urban, there's a need for weapons in the hands of trained people for self-defense.
And I heard, you know, Chicago said we've got a Sandy Hook tragically almost every week. Some child dies because of stray gunfire or somebody who's off their rocker. And you know, I totally agree with you as a healthcare professional that a lot of the conversation, the discussion has not been about mental health. And a lot of that is stigma related. I don't know what it is. What do you think about the chances of that part of the equation, that funding being there?
Well, you know, obviously we're in tight budget times and we need to set priorities, but keeping our children safe is a huge priority. And whether that's getting the mental health care that's necessary for troubled folks, providing additional security in schools, we've got to find a way to do that. It's a priority. You know, there's nobody who doesn't want to protect our children.
Yeah, I saw a powerful picture of and I showed it to my daughter, was of a Israeli teacher with an automatic weapon strapped on her shoulder, bringing the children into school because they live in such a dangerous society, dangerous times.
And the crime rate there is low. Their fear is terrorism. You look just south of us in Mexico, where you've got some of the strictest gun laws. We just had a Marine down there that was put in jail for taking an antique shotgun that he declared to the Mexican authorities. You know, he spent time in jail on that. They have some of the strictest gun laws in the world in Mexico, and you still have huge violence at the hands of the drug gangs. So, you know, just banning guns we see isn't working in Mexico.
Yeah, and turning to that, you know, the immigration policy. This is something that I know that I hate to tell people, but say, well, Congressman Farenthold, when you first came on, it was unpopular for you to say at the time, we need realistic immigration policy, and now what are they saying?
Well, you know, I think we're close to an agreement on every issue. Where the stumbling point is what do you do with the folks that are already here in this country illegally? We've created an underclass of people who are not protected by the laws that are here illegally. They can be exploited by their employers. They can be victimized by crime, and they can't call the authorities for fear of being deported. And you know, it's these 11 million plus people that are the problem that we are trying to solve, and the stumbling block that we face doing it. Because what I'm afraid is going to happen is that we make them citizens and a group of folks come back in and keep coming in. You talk about border security and securing the border. Even if we secured the border 100%, of the people who are in this country illegally, 40% of them came in legally on tourist visas or student visas and overstayed. What we've got to find is a solution that doesn't encourage people to overstay their visas. And you know, a lot of people have a problem with the word amnesty, but we'll use the word amnesty. We did it once, more people continued to come. What can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And there's some solutions to that. We've got to have strong employer sanctions. So if you hire somebody here illegally, there are fines and, quite frankly, I think criminal penalties, because in many cases, these employers are exploiting people by unsafe work conditions, lower than minimum wage. It's a bad situation. But we've got to find the right formula before we grant something akin to amnesty, that we don't have a whole nother group of people and 20 years down the road we're doing it again. So we've got to find those solutions, and that's the hard part. I think we all agree we need to do something for the children that were brought here illegally. We need to simplify the system for getting here. We need to prioritize visas, especially for the best and brightest who come here, and we educate them on a student visa, and then they can't stay. They've got to go home because they can't get a work visa here. It's a complicated problem. They call it comprehensive immigration reform because there are a lot of issues. So I think we're going to find a solution, and it's just going to take a couple months, maybe a little longer.
Looking at what's kind of floating around inside the Beltway right now, that President Obama suggested that 8-year sort of track. In the couple of minutes we have left before the break, What is your view on that? Is it workable? I know that a couple of Rubio and I think Cruz have spoken out, maybe perhaps not.
Now, I think an 8-year plan, just setting a date on it, isn't going to be the solution. The solution is going to have to be implementation of a system that secures the borders and doesn't create a magnet to create this group of unprotected folks again once we've done either a residency or whatever we decide to do with the people who are here already. And we've also got to make sure we don't let the people who are undocumented and in the country now get in front of the people who are playing by the rules and in line.
Oh boy!
And you're looking
let me tell you,
you're looking at as many as 10+ years to get in. Now, I think we're going to solve some of that by streamlining and simplifying it, but we've got to have some incentives in place for the executive branch and the agencies to get that done. So, you know, I think there are going to be some triggers in what happens, you know, whether it's a pathway to citizenship, a pathway to residency, or whatever we do. There are going to be some triggers associated with implementing some of the policies so we turn off the magnet.
Well, very well said. We're going to take a brief break. You're watching your Congressman, Blake Farenthold, and up on the screen, Diamond Dave's putting up the contact information for him and to get in touch with him. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the mail-outs he's sending to you guys and inform you about what's going on, the important issues for each and every one of you, and how can young people get involved in the process when we come back.
Have you been arrested or are potentially facing criminal charges? You need a trial attorney who is well-versed in the courtroom. Joe Flores has handled hundreds of criminal cases and many of them to trial. Joe Flores can provide you with competent representation to protect your constitutional rights in state and federal court. Joe Flores can help if you have been arrested or facing criminal charges. The law offices of Joe Flores. Equal justice for all.
Hi, this is attorney and board-certified nurse practitioner Joe Flores on behalf of Vasquez Flores Home Health. Nursing homes have their place, but having care in your own home is very important. Call today for more information. Backed by over 20 years of experience, registered nurse Priscilla Vasquez can answer your questions about home care. Call 881-9922, that's 881-9922 today.